Hi, we're Ariel,
And Michelle,
and
and
we're
we're
the
the
board
Board
game
Game Tutors.
tutors.
Today we'll be doing our first advanced concepts video for the board game Abyss, in which we'll be discussing lords, specifically how they interact with locations and what their special effects are. So first, you can see here that some lords have keys and some don't. And the key is that image in the upper right-hand corner. So here we have two lords that have keys and then one that doesn't. So for the lords that have keys, as soon as you have three keys, and you can get them from lords or also from key tokens, which we discussed previously, as soon as you have three keys, you're required to get a location. You follow the rules that we discussed before of how you get a location, and then you put that location over the three lords or whatever number of lords is involved. You put it over the lords that have keys that are locking in that location. And now the location is covering the text on the cards, which helps you remember that the special abilities of the lords are no longer in play once they're part of a location. And before they were considered free lords, but now they aren't because they're locked into a location.
So in this example, these three lords would be free because none of them are locked into a location. There's only two keys, not three, like you need that were necessary. But the second this lord came into play, and you recruited that lord, then you would cover all three of these lords with keys with that location. None of them would have any special abilities anymore. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, as far as the special abilities go, some of them are immediate effects and then others are ongoing effects. So, here, these two examples show us ongoing and immediate. So, first, for the treasurer, um, first the trader, he's got that arrow pointing down. That means he has an immediate effect. So, it happens right when you recruit him, and that's the only time that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Then, with the treasurer, we don't have an arrow like that. So for him, his effect is ongoing as long as he's free. As soon as he's locked into a location, like we said, that effect doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. So once you have two other lords with keys or any other combination that gives you three keys, then this treasurer, whatever that combination is, would be covered. Not this guy because he doesn't have a key. But yes. So anytime a lord with a key gets into a three key combination, then that lord gets covered up. His power is no longer into effect. And you can tell here the location is pretty much exactly the right size to fit three lords with keys. And like we said, sometimes we use tokens. And lords that don't have keys will never be locked into a location. They'll always be considered free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So
Okay.
let's go into the 6 different guilds, which is just a fancy name for the 6 different groups of lords that you'll find in the game.
Okay, so the 6 kinds there are farmers,
Mm-hmm.
farmer lords, politician lords, ambassadors, mage lords, merchant lords, and soldier lords.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about farmer lords first. They're the easiest to understand because they don't have any special abilities, actually. These ones just tell you the name. So at the bottom, you see this is the keeper. And then she has a key, and she gives you 6 influence points, also known as victory points. The shepherd also has a key and gives you 6 influence points. The aquaculturalist just gives you 11 victory points. The reaper gives you a key and 6 victory points. The miller gives you just 10 victory points. And then the landowner gives you 12 victory points, and that's the most victory points that any of the lords is going to give you in this game.
All right. Those are the farmer lords. They didn't have any special text, like we said. Let's push those aside. Go ahead and get started on the politician lords.
Okay. This is the treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
He has a key. He gives you 5 influence points, and his text says, for you, the cost of recruiting lords is reduced by 2. So remember, when you recruit a lord, you spend whatever point value it tells you in the bottom left corner. Like here, we see the treasurer costs 10. But once you have the treasurer, the next time you recruit a lord, and all the times after that, as long as his ability is in effect, you just subtract 2 from the amount that you have to pay. So for someone like this, you'd only have to pay a total of 8. And you still have to follow the different kinds of cards that you have to do, the different factions. So like for this guy, you need a squid card, at least one squid card, and at least one card from another faction. But the numbers on the cards only would have to add up to 8.
So yeah, so if you look at this card next, that one costs 12. But if you have the treasurer working for you in your play area, this would not be 12, it would be a 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go to the next one.
The trader has an immediate effect.
Only happens when you buy him as a lord.
Mm-hmm. You can discard one of your other free lords and replace it with any lord from the court.
So like we said, free lords are people who are not locked into a location. And if you see a lord that you really like in the court, you can take that free lord that is not currently locked into a location and replace it with a lord that you think would work better for you that is currently in the court.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The opportunist. During your turn, you may discard a lord from the court and replace it with the top one from the deck. So this one is really cool if you see something in the court that you don't want your opponent to get, like one that might be able to attack one of your lords or would just be really beneficial for your opponent and you don't want them to have it. This lets you get rid of it from the court and then put out the next card from on top of the deck. And you have no idea what the next card will be, so it's a little bit of a gamble there.
Yeah, and also it's an ongoing effect, so as long as you have the opportunist and he is not covered, he would continue to do this for you once per turn.
Yeah, so every turn you can discard a lord if you want to. Oh, also, these abilities are always a choice. So you do them and you may not be able to do them either.
Right. So, for example, let's go back here. So this trader, it says you can discard one of your other free lords. So that doesn't mean you have to. If you don't have a free lord, obviously you can't do his special ability. But let's say you have one free lord, you don't have to betray him with the trader. You can just keep him on your side and just say, I'm going to ignore this special ability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. The corruptor. You can recruit a second lord from the court by paying 5 pearls instead of its normal cost. So when you get the corruptor, you can immediately get someone else as long as you have 5 pearls. So you would want to make sure you had 5 pearls if you wanted to take advantage of this. And you can just recruit another lord from the court. We think he's called the corruptor because he convinces them not to take what they thought they wanted and just to take pearls, which are essentially money. So like he convinced them to only care about money.
Yeah. So basically, in order to make good use of this card, you essentially get 2 lords in the same turn, which is pretty useful. But you have to have the pearls to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The schemer. You may discard one of your other free lords and replace it with the top one from the deck. So this happens right when you get him. You have to choose right then if you want to get rid of another free lord that you have, and then you're gambling because you don't know what's on top of the deck.
And also, the way this is worded, you have to be careful here. You may discard one of your other free lords. So the schemer, he doesn't have a key, so technically he's a free lord, but since it says other free lords, you have to choose another free lord. And like we said, it says may, so you don't have to do this. Mm-hmm. But if you want to do it, you have to do it with someone besides the schemer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the diplomat. When you recruit, you may use any race of your choice. You must still respect the number of races required.
So for example, once you bought the diplomat and he was in your play area, then let's say you wanted to recruit this schemer, you would not be obligated to use a squid for the schemer because of the diplomat special power. You could use jellyfish, you could use crustacean, you could use seahorse, for example, and you don't have to use a squid. So this is pretty convenient if you don't have the cards in your hand to meet the specific requirements, but you still have to have 3 factions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Those were all the politician lords.
Yep.
Okay,
now we're going to talk about the ambassadors. There are just 3 of these. These ones are special because they all require 1 from each faction.
That's why they're called the ambassador, because they speak to all the different sea creature races and get on all their good sides. So,
okay.
Here.
So the elder. Draw 3 locations, place 1 under your control using the keys from this lord, and make the other 2 available.
So like we said here, once you get 3 keys, and the special thing about the ambassadors is they always give you 3 keys. So let's say, for example, you had 2 lords in your possession and you already had 2 keys. Well, this lord by himself, since he gives 3 keys, he would get a location all by himself, even though you already have 2 lords that have 2 keys total. He would get 1 location all by himself, but it's an immediate effect. You have to do this. It doesn't say may. Mm-hmm. You must draw 3 locations and place 1 of them under your control. And then you have to make the other 2 available. So this one's kind of a gamble. You definitely get a location because you have the 3 keys, but you don't know what you're getting. And also, you leave 2 locations up for your opponent to grab.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The sage. So because he's an ambassador, he gives you 3 keys when you get him. Draw 2 locations, place one under your control using the keys from this lord, and make the other one available. So in this case, you just get 2 locations to choose from, which again, you're drawing them from the deck of locations, from the stack of locations, so you don't know ahead of time what your options are going to be.
And you have a more limited choice. But as you can see here, for the Elder, when you draw 3 locations, he's worth 3 influence points at the end of the game. The Sage, you draw 2 locations, he's worth 4. So he's worth 1 more because you have a little bit, you have fewer options, basically. And then the last Ambassador,
the Hermit. Draw 1 location and place it under your control, using the keys from this lord.
Obviously a big gamble because you have no idea what the location is. You don't have any choice whatsoever. But he does give you 5 points instead, and like we said, he has 3 keys.
All right, those were the ambassadors.
Okay, next section, we're going to talk about the Mage Lords. So let's see here.
Okay, the Illusionist. This is an immediate effect. You can exchange one of your locations for a different available one. So if you have a location that's not as beneficial for you as another one that's out on the board available, you can just exchange it and get the one that you like better.
And so for a different available one. So you're not allowed to search through the draw pile of face down locations. You must pick from the available locations. So you and the Illusionist gives you 9 victory points. Not integrity points.
Influence points.
So that's not bad. That's a pretty high total. And so you could just buy this card just for the influence points. But if you see a location that is available, that is face up on the board, you can swap that out for a location that you currently have. And yeah, that's only if you have a current location. So you can't do that if you have no locations.
Right. The Oracle. During your turn, you may discard 1 stack of cards from the council. So you can do this every turn, and it just says during your turn, so it doesn't really matter at what point in your turn.
And also, important thing is, it's an ongoing ability. As long as he's not covered, he can keep doing it. And as you can remember from the previous video, the board's not on the table right now, but you can discard 1 whole stack of cards from the council. So let's say you saw there was a level 5 jellyfish in the jellyfish pile, because you remembered that, and you know your opponent's going to go next, and you don't want them to get that level 5 jellyfish or that level 5 seahorse. So what do? On your turn, you can use the Oracle's power, discard that whole stack, and now your opponent doesn't have the opportunity to grab that high level card. Okay.
The Shaman. You are protected against the powers of military lords.
So we'll get to that more when we get to, it's funny, it says military lords, but what they mean are soldier lords. But basically, a lot of the military lords / soldier lords have negative effects for you if your opponent grabs them and uses their power against you. So as a guarantee against their power, you could get the Shaman and protect yourself from all of those negative effects.
As long as she isn't in a location.
Yeah, so she does have a key, so you do have to be careful of that.
The Master of Magic. When you recruit, affiliate the ally of your choice from among those used, instead of the lowest value one.
So, for this example, this is for obviously for affiliating allies. So let's say, in this example, when you recruit the Master of Magic, you need to have 10, and you need to have 3 factions, with one of them being jellyfish. So let's say I use this card combination because it's what I had in my hand. I'm going to use 3 factions: seahorse, jellyfish, and crustacean. And total's 10. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So that would be that. And when I recruit the Master of Magic, I would get to pick one of the lowest for when I recruited him. So I would either pick this jellyfish, or this level 1 jellyfish, or this level 1 seahorse. And then, let's say I was going to recruit another lord. So those cards, one of those would get affiliated, and then the others would just go to the discard pile. Let's say for another lord, let's say I was doing a squid lord that cost 6. Well, I would do, and he needed 2 factions. Well, here was a level 4 squid and a level 2 crab. Normally, if I didn't have the Master of Magic, I would have to take this level 2 crab as an affiliated ally. But since I have the Master of Magic now, I could take this level 4 squid, and that would be pretty beneficial for endgame scoring. Okay, so that's that. So when you get the Master of Magic, when you first grab him, you have to grab the lowest ally, but after that, As long as he isn't covered, he will help you grab the largest number ally.
So that can really affect your score at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have the Invoker. His immediate effect is that you take an extra turn after this one. So yeah, you finish your turn recruiting him, and then you immediately can do something else. We had one game where Ariel played the Invoker during his last turn, which meant he got to do an extra turn and recruit another Lord, which helped him win the game. So this guy can be really powerful.
So if you play him just right, instead of having 7 Lords, you could have 8 Lords out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, skipped him by accident.
There's the Alchemist. When you request support from the Council, add 2 stacks to your hand instead of 1.
So the Council, as you remember, is the middle third of the board. So that's where stacks of cards develop. Instead of just grabbing 1 for your turn, by requesting help from the Council, you can grab 2 stacks, which can really improve your hand and give you a better variety.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Next, the Apprentice. Immediate effect, add 1 stack of cards from the Council to your hand.
So this only happens once. The Alchemist is an ongoing ability, but the Apprentice, as apprentices will happen to have skills of when they're learning their trade, she can only grab 1 stack of cards. The Alchemist has an ongoing ability, and he can grab 2 at a time. Mm-hmm. So she's just a weaker form of the Alchemist, but she does give you 9 influence points, which is pretty useful.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, those were the Mage Lords.
Going on to the Merchant Lords.
Okay, first is the Landlord. Gain 1 pearl during each of your turns. So for this one, you do have to remember every turn to take a pearl. Sometimes it can be hard to remember that you're supposed to do that when you have him.
Yeah, so basically our advice when you grab the Landlord and recruit him is you really have to remember on your own to get 1 pearl during each of your turns, because it can get pretty annoying if you're playing with somebody who has the Landlord and they're like, oh wait, I didn't get that pearl on my last 5 turns.
Yeah, and then you have to try to remember.
And then try to remember
how many times.
Yeah, the people you're playing with can get pretty frustrated because you need to. This is all on you. You need to remember, as the person who owns the Landlord. Okay, no. I need to get a pearl every time my turn starts.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's a pretty beneficial skill because you don't have to do anything besides have him as a free Lord. Once he's covered up by a location, he doesn't have this ability anymore. But you just need to remember not to aggravate your opponents, to do it yourself, because they're not going to want to remind you.
Yeah, and this will help you have more pearls so that you can buy more little sea creatures when you explore, when your opponents are exploring the depths.
Mm-hmm. And also, you can use pearls as usual as wild cards. So let's say you need to pay 8 for that jellyfish, that Mage Lord. Okay, well I only have 6 right now, but I have 2 pearls from this Landlord card giving me pearls. So yeah, that can be pretty helpful.
Mm-hmm. The Peddler, you simply gain 2 pearls right when you recruit him.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and he's worth 9 influence points, which is pretty big.
The Trader, you gain 3 pearls right when you recruit her.
9 victory points.
The Shipmaster, gain 1 pearl for each different race that you send to the Council. So this is when you explore the depths, when it's your turn and you explore the depths. However many individual races you get that you put in the stacks in the Council, you get a pearl for each of those.
So let's say, for example, you explore the depths, and I believe there's 5 spaces in exploring the depths. But let's say you got these cards when you explored the depths, and the last card was this 4 squid. You have 1 jellyfish, 2 crustaceans, so that only counts as 1, 1 crab, and 1 squid. So if this was what you got from exploring the depths, you would gain 1 pearl for each different race. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You get 4 pearls at the end of your exploring the depths phase, and 5 if you went all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the Shipmaster's ability, which is his special ability is used during the exploring the depths phase.
Mm-hmm. Shopkeeper, gain 1 pearl immediately when you recruit the Shopkeeper.
And still 9 victory points.
The Slaver, during your turn, you can discard 1 ally from your hand to gain 2 pearls.
So obviously he is selling his friendly sea creature friends for money.
Yeah, or he's actually buying them from you.
All right, yeah.
Well, I guess, yeah, it depends how you look at it.
Depends how you look at it. But yeah, and since he's so brutal, he only gives you 5 victory points.
Okay, that's the last of the Merchant Lords.
And that's an ongoing ability, which you can keep using once every turn.
Mm-hmm.
Or once? I'm not sure.
Yeah, during your turn, you can discard one ally
yeah.
from your hand to gain 2 pearls.
Yeah, it doesn't say you can discard 2 allies. Otherwise, that would be 2.
Okay, and
now
then
to the
finally,
last group of lords, the soldier lords, or military lords, depending upon what you read.
Okay, this is the commander. Your opponents can no longer hold more than 6 allies in hand. They must immediately discard any extras. So this is pretty harsh because normally in the game you don't have a hand limit for allies, the little sea creatures that you get from exploring the depths.
So let's say your opponent in this game had all of these cards. You can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The second that they got more, not the second they got more, but let's say they explored the depths and they got 1 card. Now they have 7. At the end of their turn, they must discard back down to 6.
Actually, you're right the first time. It says they must immediately discard any extras.
Oh, okay.
So as soon as they have too many, they have to get rid of 1.
Yeah.
Or however many they have too many of.
Yeah. So basically, pretty crippling for your opponent. Opponents. So yeah, not a nice lord to have fighting against you, and definitely a reason to have that one mage lord who protects you from military lords or soldier lords.
Yeah, as you can see, these all get pretty obnoxious because they do things to the opponent of the person who has them.
Yeah, they basically mess with opponents' decks.
Mm-hmm. The hunter has an immediate effect. Steal a random monster token from the opponent of your choice. So random meaning you don't get to flip the monster token over and see how many points it's worth. You just have to randomly choose one, but you get to choose which opponent you're taking it from.
Right. And if you only have one opponent and that one opponent only has 1 monster token, obviously you can't choose a random one. You can just grab the one that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if nobody has any monster tokens, it says steal, but obviously if there is nothing to steal, then you can't steal.
Yep. Okay, then we have the tamer. When your opponents fight a monster, they earn the reward from the previous monster track space. Okay, so we don't have the monster track out on the board right now, but as you remember, it moves up. And when someone fights a monster, they get their reward for the level that it's at. But if someone has the tamer, then their opponent has to look at the lower level to see what they get for fighting a monster. Yeah. So that takes away from what they would otherwise get from fighting a monster.
The next immediate lower one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's that.
Okay. The jailer. This is an immediate effect. Each of your opponents must discard 1 ally from their hand. So that only happens right when someone recruits the jailer and then at no other time. So they just have to choose 1 card and get rid of it.
Yeah. So this is not nearly as obnoxious as the commander, because the commander is an ongoing ability. Although once your opponent, like we said, this is his special ability, and he has a key. So if he has a location on top of him, you no longer have to obey that rule.
Yeah, he's no longer limiting the hand size once his ability is covered.
Also, just as a piece of advice, once you do cover up the commander with a location, it's probably best to go ahead and tell your opponent, if they weren't paying close enough attention, you can have higher than 6 cards in your hand now.
Yep.
Because they'd probably get annoyed with you if you didn't tell them that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we finished with the jailer.
Mm-hmm. The recruiter. All recruitment costs for your opponents are increased by 2.
So obnoxious, just like the commander. Obviously, some people just like these cards because they mess with other people and they think it's funny. But all recruitment costs are for your opponents are increased by 2. So basically, not for you, but for everybody else, a number 10 will cost 12, a number 8 will cost 10, etc. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he has a key. So as long as he is free and not locked, his ability will stay in effect. Once he's covered by a location, then he no longer has his effect, and probably a wise idea to tell your opponent, okay.
Yeah, so then recruitment costs would go back to normal. Mm-hmm. Then here's the seeker. Each of your opponents must return 2 pearls to the treasury. So right when you recruit him, everyone has to put 2 pearls back in the treasury. So they have 2 less than they had before. Mm-hmm. The assassin. This is an immediate effect. Each of your opponents must turn 1 lord of your choice 90 degrees. That lord counts only for influence points. So to be clear, the person who recruits the assassin then gets to choose which cards their opponents will turn 90 degrees.
So let's say this was player 1's player area, and this was player 2's player area. So they both, player 1 just got the assassin and recruited him. Player 2 only has 1 lord by himself, who is free because he is not locked underneath the location. Now, each of your opponents must turn one lord of your choice 90 degrees. So, obviously, in this example, he doesn't really have a choice, he only has one.
Mm-hmm.
Then player 2 would have to turn that card 90 degrees. He is only worth victory points. He does not have a key anymore, essentially, and he no longer has his ability. So, this only works against free lords. If a lord is locked underneath a location, the assassin can't touch him. And so, obviously, that limits targets that the assassin can focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's that. And yeah, and let's also say, for example, that happened to my diplomat. Let's say I was player 2. I could use another card. Right here, the schemer.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's perfect. Right here. You may discard one of your other free lords and replace it with a top one from the deck. So let's say I was really annoyed by that, my opponent making my diplomat be nulled, basically.
Only worth points.
Only worth victory / influence points. So as this, if I bought the schemer, his immediate effect would be I could draw the top card from the deck and replace the diplomat with that person, which might be a pretty wise decision because the diplomat's only worth 5 victory points anyway. I'd be hoping for a lord that had more victory points than that, or a better ability because this one has been nullified.
Yeah, and so that new lord that you draw would not be assassinated anymore.
Yeah. So if I drew, for example, if I drew the apprentice, I would take the diplomat. It would go away, basically. It would get discarded. And this apprentice would be 9, so that's pretty awesome. And I would get the immediate effect. Add 1 stack of cards from the council to your hand, which isn't bad. So that would happen like that. So those were all the lords from the Abyss board game. Next time, we're going to be talking about all the different locations, what they mean, and how they interact specifically with different lords. Because, as you're going to see in the future, some of the locations give you extra bonus points for having lords from the same guild. So, soldier, merchant, mage, ambassador, politician, or farmer lords. So, we'll go into that in the next video. And yeah, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like this video and want to see more content that we'll be producing on a regular basis, please subscribe to our channel. And yeah, is that everything, Michelle?
Yep. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in all our other videos.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
All
See you
right.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.